The land behind me is Chalons in northern France. Today, Chalons is in the heart of the Champagne region. But 1600 years ago, in 451 AD, it was the scene of one of the biggest and bloodiest battles in ancient history. I'm Matthew Settle. Nearly 500,000 men fought here as the Roman general Aetius tried to halt the advance of Attila the Hun and his terrifying barbarian hordes. Now, with new video game technology, you're about to see this great battle as never before. The vast numbers of soldiers, the troop formations, how they fought, and how the battle was won. Get the view the generals wished they'd had. Now, Decisive Battles. In 451 AD, the Roman Empire was in tatters. The glory days of Augustus, a distant memory. Back then, the Roman Empire had stretched from the Mediterranean Sea and far beyond into Europe, Asia, and Africa. By 451 AD, Rome was no longer the center of government, and the empire was split in two. The Eastern Empire, based in Constantinople, was wealthy and well-maintained, but the Western Empire was overrun by barbarian tribes.
The Roman Empire was neither Roman nor it was an empire. It had been dissected between East and West. It was not in control of its borders.
They would have been progressively hard-pressed to see a oneness in the empire that was about them. It was made up of armies, it was made up of governors, it was made up of garrisons and towns. It had become a fragmented world.
From Ravenna in northern Italy, Valentinian III ruled over the remnants of the Western Empire. He claimed to rule Spain, Gaul, and Italy. In reality, these countries were controlled by local leaders and barbarian settlers. Gaul, or modern-day France, was ruled by the Visigoths. Italy by the Vandals. What's more, Valentinian's general and chief advisor, Flavius Aetius, was half barbarian.
He was obviously a very capable commander with considerable experience. He was clearly a very considerable politician. He had occupied the top spot for quite some years.
He had an Italian mother, but was raised among the Visigoths, and had even spent a year with the Huns.
He knew Hunnic ways. He grew up in a silk tent. He learned to ride a horse, probably with the Huns.
He's often called the last of the real Romans, the last of the noble Romans, or the noble Roman, inasmuch as for 30 years he seems to have been very active on the northwest frontier of Rome in a series of holding actions, trying to keep out Franks, trying to keep out Goths from getting into the unprotected and bountiful areas of central Italy and Spain.
The Western Empire was now little more than an enticing target for the barbarian tribes. And in 451 AD, there was one barbarian leader who stood out from all of the others, Attila the Hun.
Attila is represented as the super barbarian.
He was slightly graying, he was bent over, he was very muscular, probably entering middle age, squat, dark, swarthy person.
The Huns were horsemen from the steppes of Asia.
Many of the Germanic tribes were Christians of some shape or form. The Huns were not. And, of course, Attila was described as being, quote, the scourge of God.
Everyone feared the Huns, and with good reason. In a lightning raid through the Eastern Empire, they left behind a trail of destruction. St. Jerome wrote, "They filled the whole earth with slaughter and panic, and they took pity neither upon religion nor rank, nor race nor age, nor wailing childhood." By 450 AD, Attila was looking for his next target. The rich Eastern Empire was paying him an annual tribute of 2,100 pounds in gold to stay away. But the Huns couldn't live by plunder alone. They were nomads who needed to be on the move.
Their very existence was predicated on constant motion. They had to find always new sources of plunder, always new sources of fodder, and to stay in one place would mean that they would literally eat themselves out of their locale within a matter of weeks.
So Attila turned his attention to the west, which was now ruled by rival barbarian tribes. Most of Gaul was ruled by the Visigoth leader Theodoric. Gaiseric, ruler of the Vandals, controlled most of Italy.
The two men hated each other. Things came to a head when Gaiseric's son, who was married to Theodoric's daughter, cut her nose and ears off during an argument. Gaiseric saw a chance to destroy his rival. He encouraged Attila the Hun to invade Gaul and overthrow Theodoric. It was the opportunity Attila had been waiting for. The opportunity to divide and conquer.
Attila thought that it offered a pretty good cost-benefit ratio. You could plunder it pretty easily, and the chances that you'd be killed or captured or punished were not very great.
The Roman general Aetius saw the writing on the wall. He knew the Huns well from having spent time living among them. He'd even been on friendly terms with Attila. So he knew that if Attila was allowed to conquer Gaul, he wouldn't stop until he'd swept south into Italy and completely destroyed the Western Empire. Aetius knew that he would have to join forces with Theodoric's army to save the West. He couldn't defeat the Huns on his own. Though Theodoric was no friend of the Romans, he reluctantly agreed to fight alongside of them. To Attila, the opportunity to invade Gaul was irresistible. It was isolated and rich. In 451, he crossed the Rhine with a huge army. Terrified chroniclers claimed he had more than 500,000 men under his command.
The core of the Hunnic army was surely the Huns themselves. There's no way to tell how many people that means. My guess is surely not more than 10,000 effective Hunnic warriors.
But more impressive than numbers was his ability to lay siege to a city, something few barbarian armies had ever been able to achieve.
The Huns rampaged through Europe, burning city after city. Cologne, Mainz, Metz, Strasbourg, Reims, until in June 451, they reached Orleans. Aetius had to stop the Huns there before they poured into Italy. He was all that now